All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome back. We'll have class normal today. No more issues, thankfully. So, friendly reminders, and we got a bunch. The next two My Math Lab assignments you have to do, 8.1 and 8.3, they're due today and Thursday the 10th. Your next and final Excel file, yes, the final one, will be 9-4 mutual fund. It's assigned to section 9.2, so we'll say something like 9.2, then 9-4, but you're used to the numbers and everything. Just look for the one from chapter 9 that says mutual fund. That's due on the 15th. That's going to look very similar to several of the finance spreadsheets that we've set up, but it's already set up for you. You just have to do the math and do the Excel stuff along the way. Your last quiz, yes, I said last quiz, is due today. Your final exam is going to be a week from today. It is one day only, unlike the midterm. We will not have class that day. We also will not have class the 17th. So we meet this Tuesday and this Thursday. Thursday the 10th is the last time that I'll hold a lecture. And that is it for this course. To study for the final exam is going to be cumulative. It'll cover everything from chapter 1 all the way up to, I say chapter 9, but you'll notice that the review really only goes up to chapter 8. This chapter 9 stuff, I want to just kind of more address the issues and talk about in a real world scenario more than, since we really need 1 to 2 more classes to get everything done. To focus on the pure math of things. But you'll still see me do some of the math. I just won't take 30 minutes kind of setting it up. Yeah, but I can't waste too much time, so we need to keep moving. So you can use the review from chapter 1 through 4, which was that like 60 questions with answers, but no middle work. You had to fill in the blanks. I am also assigned a new review for chapter 5 through 9. Now, unlike the chapter 1 through 4, I want to do this one different. This review is built into my math lab, kind of like a homework assignment. So it will tell you if you're right or wrong along the way, and you've got the tools like help me solve this, view an example, et cetera, et cetera. And you can find that in the top of your My Math Lab assignments, which will look something like this. The midterm will be above it, and then once the final is assigned, that will also be above it, but it'll be the first, second, or third thing, just depending on where you're in. And this is obviously not our shell since that says May 7th, just ignore that date. So you have a review for the first half, you have a review for the second half. Also, the midterm itself would be an excellent review because if I already use questions on the midterm, it's possible I could use questions very, very similar on the final. So I would say for the first 4 chapters, don't just study the review again, also study the midterm. Now, some students may say, well, could I just study the midterm and not the review? And to that I say, you'll see some questions from the midterm itself again repeated, different numbers and everything, same concepts, maybe even same concept, different application. Like maybe the midterm problem talked about apples and then the final problem talks about oranges or something much, much different than fruit. But I could be pulling questions from the review, I could be pulling questions from the midterm itself, I could be pulling questions from both. So I would say if you have the time, lay your eyes on both. So again, the final is cumulative, but it's not going to be any longer. It's still 20 questions. It's still 2 hours. You are still allowed a calculator. You still want to have your formula sheets, both of which are in Canvas, which, just going to one of my Canvas shells. Where are they? It must be further to the top. Here we go. So under reviews, that's where you find your midterm review. I also put an additional final review if you just really like the paper or pencil version of it with just questions and answers and nothing to guide you. This does have some chapter 9 stuff in it though, so just be warned that anything from chapter 9 you probably wouldn't see on the final itself, except very simple stuff. But your midterm formula sheet, which had those 1 or 2 conversions, and then this is your formula sheet for the 8 formulas, the finance formulas that looks like this. And today we are actually going to talk about at least one of these, probably 3 of these, maybe even 4, probably only 3 of the 4. So we'll get into these again, not necessarily going to throw them on the final, except maybe this one. But still nice to see, but I'll also just give you websites that can help you get these numbers either exactly or close in the case of annuities. All right. So when I was scrolling this, in the notes to share down here, which again, you were supposed to all semester be reading ahead of time, whether you were or not. The very last one is websites to help you with your finances. Again, I'm going to talk a lot about independent finance stuff over the next 2 days, a lot more ranting and raving on my side of things. And this is what that file looks like. So we just did our budget project, which I will have graded by Friday afternoon. I'm probably going to spend Friday morning grading all of those, if not Thursday evening, but I have too much to handle before then, unfortunately. Everydollar.com, mint.com, these are great websites just to go ahead and do a monthly budget without having to use Excel, and it might guide you a little better along the way, and they're free. A credit card payoff calculator, which we'll look at later, a mortgage calculator, an annuity calculator, annuity being the type of thing where you invest in over and over and over to eventually retire on, not just put a one-time deposit into. Some websites that you can actually get annuities, and they're not usually called annuities anymore. We call them things like mutual funds, stocks, ETFs, bonds, whatever. So here's a whole bunch of different sites: Vanguard, Fidelity, E-Trade, Robinhood, Acorns, Webull. There's a new one out. I can't say it's new, but I've only recently heard of it. I'm always researching this stuff. It's called eToro, and you can actually copy other people's investment profiles. I know nothing about it, but it sounds interesting. I kind of want to go put 50 bucks in it just to learn it. Some of these will actually give you a couple free stocks. Some of them do these things like roundup, where if you go buy a $4.60 item, it charges you $5, and that extra 40 cents goes into your investments, which for a lot of people, that's amazing and something that would probably help you along the way. NerdWallet is an excellent resource for all sorts of finance stuff. Credit score calculation on the second page. We'll actually get into that hopefully over the next 2 days. Because like I said, this is usually a 3 to 4 class at hour and 15 minutes, hour and 10 minutes lecture, but I need to somehow condense it to 2, so it's going to come fast. Remember, there is a slow down button on YouTube, as well as you can replay it over and over and over. I am also considering making an additional video or 2 if I can find the time, and it may come after the semester is over and I can just email it out. But with just some extra helpful, math problems or just finance topics, things like that. But I can't promise on that part. All right, so let's get into it. Chapter 9. And where are we? Here we go. And you'll notice that in the notes to share, hopefully you already noticed that I do not do things in order. I do not go 9.1, 9.2, 9.3, 9.5. Notice I didn't say 9.4 because we would skip 9.4. I start out with 9.5, debt, and there is a reason for that, because in our lives, we generally acquire debt before we acquire savings and interest and investments and annuities and things like that. So debt is usually the first thing we acquire, whether it be a car loan or student loans or mortgage or just credit card payments. Those are the first 4 things we tend to acquire, maybe at the age of 18, 22, 25, just depending on how slow or quick we get into things. Then it's later where we really start building up our wealth. Now, it's hopeful that you are starting both at the same time, but not everyone can. And again, I'm trying to do this as a broad discussion, not just for the, the top 1% or the bottom 1%. So there are formulas for these calculations, but to start this, which you've already seen. So loan payment, boom, there's the formula for 9.5, dealing with cars, dealing with mortgages, dealing with student loans. Not credit cards though, credit cards are different. But this is your loan payment for your home, for your car, your boat, your home refinance, whatever, where the PMT stands for a monthly payment. So PMT is different from P. P we usually use for an initial amount, whether invested or borrowed. A we tend to use for a future amount. PMT is for something that we're doing every month or every week or every day or every year maybe. It's something that we keep doing over and over and over. So for a loan payment, this is what we pay every month, usually on a monthly scale. This value of annuity, these 3 formulas, which again, these are kind of like our investments. PMT is the amount of money you're putting away instead. So for a loan, PMT is what you're paying every month. For an annuity, for your investments, PMT is what you're investing each month. It still feels like a payment, but it comes back to you later and in spades. All right, so mortgages are the good kind of debt, because up here at the top I say there's good and there's bad kinds of debt. And a lot of people might want to argue with me over this. Mortgage is terrible debt. You're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to a bank over 20, 30 years, and if you refinance, you may pay 40 or 50 years. It's horrible for you. Okay, I see that argument. But also, if you don't do those bad things like refinance over and over and over and pay your house for 50 years, you just get a 30-year loan and pay it off. After 30 years, you don't pay for your house anymore except for taxes and insurance. And that is like, if you were paying $1,500 for a mortgage originally, now you're probably paying like $300 or $400 a month. That is an insane amount of savings. If you go live in an apartment or a townhome or rent a home, you're going to keep paying that $1,500 a month for the rest of your life. Whereas a mortgage, eventually you own that home, you have property, you have value. And that's not me just putting down renting completely. I love some aspects of renting. Renting, if your roof deteriorates, you don't have to shell out $10,000 out of pocket to replace it. Or if you have to put a new $2,000 bay window on your house, or your AC system kicks and that's $8,000. And let's see, your bathroom leaks and you have to replace the entire bathroom. And I am very much using real life scenarios. Maybe thumbs are pointing in my direction. So homes can be very expensive, and when you rent, you don't have to have these giant obligations that come up all at once. But that's also why I taught you how to prorate expenses, so that if you do go that homeowner route, you can put away $200 or $300 a month or $100 a month, so that when those things come up, you're not just going to get destroyed from it and have to go borrow $10,000 or borrow $15,000 or borrow $5,000. Hopefully you have your 3 to 6 month emergency fund or 6 to 12 month emergency fund, depending on what aspect of life you're at. And if this emergency fund idea, if this is the first time I've said it, please just Google, YouTube, look up this stuff. One of the biggest problems of the average American is they have less than $1,000 available for any kind of emergency. When those emergencies show up, problems. But I'm getting sidetracked. All right, so mortgages can be good. Renting can be good. Owning a home can be good. There's pros and cons to each side of things. Now, admittedly, these numbers are a little over a year old, and this past week I considered changing them, but I want to leave them because I think right now, in this specific economy we're in, where the mortgage rates are closer to 3 and 3.5% for a 30-year and a 15-year loan, and I said them backwards as to what you see on screen. So a 15-year, we're going to be doing calculations with 4.25. I'd say right now it's closer to 3. For 30-year, we'll do our calculations with 4.75. Right now, it's closer to 3.5. And for maybe another 2 or 3 years, they might stay that low. I have no idea. I can't predict that. But at some point, they are going to come back up when our economy starts recovering overall. The stock market recovered, but the economy itself hasn't, because we still have so many people out of jobs. All right, so again, when we talk about mortgages, we'll go with 4.25, which, if you don't have perfect credit, if you've got just okay credit, maybe that is the mortgage rate you're getting, or a 30-year mortgage, which is 4.75%. Now, most people get a 30-year loan, but some people go for a 15-year loan, and there's arguments for either of them, which we'll get into. So I'll show you the numbers with the actual math to the problem here in a bit, but let's just use the website to get everything done really quick at first. Mortgagecalculator.org. So you could just copy paste that, or you can just even Google, and I've been to the site a million times, you can see that. But if I Google mortgage calculator, first of all, Google has its own built-in mortgage calculator under a super, super simple template where you just put the amount that you're borrowing and your interest rate and your time, and then it will just spit out the payment. I'm a big fan of mortgagecalculator.org, which on this computer that does not have any kind of ad blocking on is down here, the 5th or 6th one. And that takes you to this site, where there's a few more things that you can put in. All right, so what do we want to see? Now, some of these things I'm going to ignore, like the property tax, the PMI, the home insurance, the homeowners association fee. We're going to just zero all those out to get down to brass tacks. PMI, this is principal mortgage insurance, which this is basically the bank not trusting you to make your payments until you have 20% in the value of your home. Typically speaking, different types of loans, that number changes. Military and doctors may be 10%. First-time home buyers, some of them, they always pay PMI. Some of them, they never pay PMI. There's a lot of different dynamics to this stuff, and please don't let that intimidate you. It's stuff that you can learn about by doing your research. And if you email me, I can point you in some good directions for that stuff. So again, we'd zero all of this out. Property tax, if you got a $200,000 home, you're probably paying about $3 grand a year in property tax, maybe less if you're not in Portsmouth. PMI, you're probably paying about $100 a month, again, on a $200,000 home. Home insurance, about $1,000 a year, which comes out to about $100 a month, $80 a month, just depending on a lot of things. Everyone can hear me, right? Okay, good. Just making sure. All right, so we were going to take a $200,000 home. Now, you might, where am I? Here we go. Maybe the house costs $220,000 and you put $20,000 down. The down payment is typically done, and that just helps reduce your mortgage a little bit. It also makes the bank trust you a little more. Most homes, you're going to need 3 to 5% down in this economy. If you can put down more, most people would suggest that you do more, but I'm not going to get that deep into things. You may be able to get a no down payment home. Not my personal favorite thing to do, but if that's all you have to do, then that's what you do. So we're going to compare this 15-year and 30-year mortgage, and let me just kind of delete the interest numbers and the payment numbers. So this is what's assigned. We got a 15-year mortgage. We're going to pay 4.25% per year. $200,000 is what we're borrowing. Now, mortgages are always on a monthly basis. So with the formula we'll see later, the end would be 12. But these are the only numbers we need for the website. So we're going to borrow $200,000 with a $0 down payment. And again, that could have been a $220,000 home and a $20,000 payment. All right, so we can see the loan amount, the interest rate we're going to make. We're going to do the 15-year first at 4.25, and the loan term 15 years. You can put this in whatever start date you like. I'm not going to worry about that. And then we're going to click calculate. We get all these graphs, which I'm not going to overanalyze. There's so many ads on this. Oh my Lord, I'm gonna put an ad block on this person's computer. And you can see that you get a monthly payment of $1,587.89. And we can see that over the 15 years, we're going to pay $70,820. So if I hit undo enough, you can see both of those numbers pop up. There we go. So a payment of something. Oh, I still the insurance in here, 0. Calculate. So now that's going to go down because this is not including insurance. So $1,504.56. This number is just rounded up to the whole dollar because that's typically how our payment calculations are done in a quantitative reasoning class. Also, the Google website would round to the whole dollar as well. And you can still see that you're paying about $70,820. This is $70,900 because that was rounded to the nearest whole dollar. And where's the Google one? So here's the Google calculator, where I don't have to worry about all those other details. I can just do the $200,000 home with a 4.25% loan, and we can see this looks wrong. And our mortgage payment needs to be over 15 years. We get $1,505 as our monthly payment, which is right here. And it doesn't tell us the interest, but guess what? If you subtracted this $270,820 and the $200,000, that's what you would get. Why do I have $70,900? It's $70,820. I think the rounding on that other website has changed. Not a big deal. It was off by 80 bucks. Whoop-de-doo. Okay, so $1,500 a month sounds like a lot to most of us, I assume. I can't say for everybody. It sounds like a solid amount to me. But what about this 30-year scenario? This 30-year scenario says it would drop your payment by almost $500, by about $460, and your interest would be $175,000. Well, let's see. So let's change the mortgage. Well, we don't change the mortgage amount. We change the interest rate to 4.75 and the mortgage term to 30 years. And there we go, our 1043 for our payment. And then 375,586. If you took the difference of 375,586 and 200,000, you'd get 175,586. Remember, total interest is the difference of what you pay. See, this says total cost of mortgage. So that's what you paid for your home versus what you're borrowing, which is the $200,000. So wow, when you get this 30-year loan, you pay almost twice what the home is worth. Now, back in the 80s and the 70s, mortgages were like 15%, and you ended up paying about 4 times the value of your home. But homes were worth a lot less because they hadn't been inflated as much. It was kind of a give and take. People were still able to afford the homes, even though they cost 4 times, 5 times as much. It's just a lot more money was going to the bank each month. And then the other website can verify this as well. Just change this to 30, change the interest rate to 4.75, hit calculate, and we get the same numbers. 1043 monthly payment, and then 175,586 for our total interest paid. And there we go. So what's the point of me comparing these two things? Because a lot of people never get into the comparison. They just say, oh, I'm going to take the 30-year loan because that gives me more time to pay it off. Or some people get really, really overzealous and go, I can pay my home down in 15 years. I'm going to take the 15-year loan. That way, those second set of 15 years, I'm not paying for a home, and I can do something else with that money, like have fun or invest. So what we're going to do really quickly is we're going to do the analysis that almost no one ever does. And we're going to compare the 15-year to the 30-year and say, which is the better idea? Which one should we take? And a lot of people will say the 15-year mortgage seems like the clear winner. Why is it the clear winner? Because when I'm looking at this, I'm not seeing it clearly yet. What I mean by clear winner is long-term versus short-term analysis. A person thinking about 1 month at a time is going to say the exact opposite of this. They're going to say the 30-year is the clear winner. Why? Long pause while my highlighter pops up. This is the clear winner because you're paying $1,043 a month instead of $1,505 a month. So I disagree. I'm the short-term person right now. The short-term person says, I disagree with you, Mr. Beckner. I want to pay $1,043 a month. I don't want to pay $1,505 a month. I've only got $1,200 a month to spare. Plus, you're going to charge me PMI insurance and taxes on top of this, which probably adds another $300 to $400. Get out of here. I need the 30-year loan. And guess what? That's true for most Americans. But some Americans live a little more frugally. They don't spend nearly as much, or they just have higher paying jobs and they don't have 4 kids and medical problems and yada, yada, yada. Lucky those people, right? So they go, well, you know what? I can actually afford the $1,505 a month plus PMI insurance and taxes. So I'm going to take that 15-year loan, and I'm going to take that loan because I'm a long-term thinker, and the long-term thinker says, over the 15 years, I'm going to pay 71 grand rounded, in interest to the bank, whereas the 30-year loan pays $175,000 in interest to the bank. So the short-term thinker said, the long-term thinker says, I'm going to pay $100,000 less for this home over the long term. That's what I mean by the 15-year mortgage seems like the clear winner. Notice I said the word seems. It seems like the clear winner. And if you know absolutely nothing about investing, and if you never invest in your entire life, then I would say the 15 years is the clear winner. But here's the thing. In my opinion, and in a lot of people's opinions, it's not. If you're willing to throw a little risk into the situation and invest, because with investment there is risks. Remember, I've said you will gain a lot of money here and there. You will lose a lot of money here and there. Over the long term, historically, though, you will make 7 to 9%, maybe more, just depends on what you invest in. Maybe less if you're just investing in bonds and playing it too safe. So be aggressive when you're young is the idea. Again, that's the idea. I'm not telling you what to do because this is not investment advice. This is just for educational purposes only. But what a person could do is they could take the 30-year loan, and they're only paying $1,043 a month. Now this person had the ability to pay the $1,505. So if you don't have the ability to pay the $1,505, you take the 30-year loan and you're happy to have it. But a person who could afford that $1,505 a month takes the 30-year loan and only pays $1,043 a month, which means they've got, what, $462 to spare every single month. So that's $462 they could just put under their mattress, or $462 they can put in a savings account and wait till their roof flies off and their bathroom leaks and their bay window crashes and whatever, and all this stuff. But honestly, that's way more money than you'd ever need for that. So maybe they go on vacations and buy shiny new cars and whatever, but maybe they're gonna think about trying to retire earlier, retire at a nominal age with a big fat retirement. So what they do is they take that $462 and they invest it. So what if you invested that extra $462 every single month into a retirement account, which we often call an annuity? Why is there a closed parentheses and not an open parentheses? I need to fix this file. And let's say it just earns 7% compounded monthly. So I'm ignoring inflation. I'm ignoring opportunities to get better investments. I'm going with what the internet and with what traditional investors say is the average lifetime return. So again, we are assuming that we could have afforded the 15-year mortgage. So again, there are formulas for this calculation, and I'll pull up the formula sheet and show you. First of all, the mortgage calculator, if I wanted to do that by hand, it would have been this formula. To do the annuity, to find out how much money you'll have over a long, long period of time, you're going to use one of these two. But since we're going to put away the money monthly, we're going to use this one. See, this is annually, so this means an annual deposit. This means in time, so monthly usually, or daily or quarterly, whatever, but usually we do this monthly. We put away money monthly. So that's the formula you would use. And if you use that formula, you would come up with a very similar number, but not exactly the same as what we're about to do with this website. So let's go to this website. Let me not spoil too much. And that is on the finance websites page that I gave you earlier, websites to help you with your finances. So if I pull that up, also, if you just Google annuity calculator, it's the 4th or 5th one to pull up there. You have to be careful with annuity calculators if you want to use one different than mine, because they work two ways. There are calculators to build the wealth, and then there's calculators to withdraw the wealth, and we're doing the build up here. So that's why I'm going to say, really use my specific website. There's not a lot of inputs here. So we start with nothing. We're going to put 0 in annually, but we're putting, we said $462 away every single month. This is not an optimal scenario here. We're putting $462 away each month. So monthly addition 462. And we're going to do this at 7% interest. And we're going to do this for how long? How long exactly? The minimum we would do this is if we're getting the 30-year mortgage, we would put that $462 away for 30 years. And look at this. We get $543,341.96 right here. We invested principal $166,000 over this 30-year period. So we put in almost the value of our own home in addition to paying off the home. And then we got almost twice the value of the home for free over time. I really love this pie chart here because it shows you that the money you have in this account 30 years later, only about 1/3 of it was your money. The other 2/3 roughly is money you got for doing nothing. And if you put this in a Roth IRA, you could have done it interest free because this is under $6,000 a year. Holy cow. This right here is almost, this is a retirement, or at least almost a retirement for most people. A lot of people say I want $1 million. Some people don't really have a specific number in mind, but $543,000 is a solid amount of money, especially considering if in a Roth IRA, you've already paid the taxes on all of this. That's $500,000. If you were investing on top of that, or if you had employer cash match, holy cow, you're going to be rolling in it. So this is a reason not to have taken the 15-year mortgage, because that extra $462 just made you $500,000. We go, all right, well, Mr. Beckner, well, how about this scenario though? What if instead of taking the 30-year mortgage and investing my extra cash every year. What if I get the 15-year mortgage, pay the $1,505 for 15 years? After I finish the mortgage, I'll take that $1,505, which I now have in my bank account every month, and just invest it. So now I'm going to pay the mortgage down, the house down for 15 years, and then I'm going to take every single penny I was paying for the mortgage, and I'm going to invest that. You go, $1,500 a month? That's going to make me like a trillionaire over 15 years, because now we only get 15 years. And if you remember what I talked about with compound interest, with these exponential equations, time is a huge factor. Time and interest rate are the biggest contributing factors to you getting all that free money, that explosion of money. So maybe the money doesn't explode as much in 15 years. Let's see. All right, so now instead of $462 a month, we have $1,505 a month, but we're only going to be able to do this for 15 years. The first 15 we were paying the mortgage, the second 15 we're paying the house. Now, do you have to invest exactly as I'm doing here? No. Maybe that $462 a month, maybe you were only investing 200 of it and then just had fun with the rest. Okay, be your own self, that's fine. Maybe this $1,505 a month, maybe you're only investing 1,200 and you take 305 of it and you have a little fun or you eat better or whatever. Okay, again, that sounds great, but we're just going to the extreme scenario. All right, so before we had $543,000 in our retirement, this extra retirement account, where almost $400,000 was free. Okay, well, we still have around $500,000, but we're under instead of over. Sorry about that. And now we put 270 grand of our own money in, whereas it was like 170 last time. And our interest, the free money, is only 200 grand, where it was 370 grand before. And in this account, it is a lot more of our own money, the lighter blue, and a lot less of the free money. Now, it's still almost half free money, so that's still amazing. That's still $470,000 you've got. It's just you end up spending a lot more of your own cheddar on this. There we go. This will help. So this was how much we had if we took the 30-year loan and invested the extra change. This is how much we have if we took the 15-year loan and then the next 15 years, we invested every penny of that. So I think with this, if you're able to achieve this over 15 or 30 years, because it's a big if, I can't say you will. Some of you might do way better than this. Some of you may not. I can't say. But both of this tells me I still want the 30-year mortgage because of two things. If you invested, as stated here, you'll net more money, assuming you get that 7% trend, which this year the trend is way above that, even through this whole virus thing. You'll net more money. Okay, we said, well, hold on, Mr. Beckner. I had this $200,000 home. You paid interest. You pay an extra $100,000 in interest. So you're paying the bank an extra $100,000. Yes. But look at this, you get $200,000 for free in this scenario, or almost $400,000 for free in this scenario. So if you take the 30-year loan, you give the bank an extra $100,000, but then you get $377,000, meaning you net $277,000 roughly, 280, because there's a $5,000 spare there. So you get more than the value of your house for free over that period. Also, well, let's say it's February. January, you put that 462 in. February, you do your taxes and something was weird and you end up owing taxman an extra $500 that you weren't expecting. Okay, so that month, don't put the 462 in your this extra retirement account. Pay the taxman. Then in March, pay the 462 in your second retirement account. Then in April, pay it. Oh, then in May, the roof blows off your house and you didn't have enough spare change. So you got to take a small loan and then pay off that loan for a year and then start paying the 462 again or something like that. But the point is you would have options. The 15-year loan doesn't give you options. You're stuck paying that $1,505 every month. So if the next month you've only got $1,200 in your bank account, what do? Well, if you had taken the 30-year mortgage, you'd still be able to pay that mortgage and then you just don't put the little extra into your investment. But if you got the 15-year loan, they're going to say, all right, well, we're going to hit you with like $75 on a late payment since you're going to pay us a month late. So is this me telling you to absolutely not take a 15-year mortgage? No, I'm not telling you that. 15-year mortgages are great for people that don't feel secure with investments. I hope that you learn to feel a little more secure with investments because this stuff works, generally speaking. But if you just can't handle that idea, the 15-year mortgage is for you because you'll save yourself that $100,000 in interest. But if you are comfortable with the idea of investments, if you are comfortable with the idea of being a millionaire 30, 40 years from now, hopefully, I would suggest that in this scenario, I would take the 30-year mortgage, pay the extra $462 a month, get my extra $500,000 for free, and then again, hopefully you're still contributing to other stuff as well. All right, so just really, really quickly, because I have to show you at least once, let's copy paste that formula over here. You okay, buddy? My dog's making a weird face at me. If I have to go on mute and run out the door for a minute, don't be surprised. All right, so this is the loan payment formula. Let's see if we can get these numbers by using that. I'm only going to do one of them, actually, and we're going to do the 30-year one since that's what I'm suggesting. So this is our payment formula. So with the scenario above, our payment should be equal to, now in this case, principal, that's the amount that you borrow. So that's the $200,000. So it's $200,000 times the interest rate, which is the 4.75, so 0.0475 over 12, since we make monthly payments and to car payments, mortgage payments in general. And yes, another alternative that's pretty popular is you pay half your monthly payment every 2 weeks. That ends up getting you an extra payment over a year, or maybe 2 payments. I don't remember off the top of my head. Another alternative is you can just take the 30-year loan, and if you have a couple extra $100 in your account, you want to put it towards the home, then you make an extra principal payment. So you can turn a 30-year loan into a 20-year loan, or a 25-year loan, or a 26-year, 3-month loan by just putting a little extra scratch in. And it doesn't take that much money to take years off of that loan, again, if you really just don't want to do the investment side of things. All right, so over bracket 1 minus parentheses 1 plus, that same 0.0475 over 12 raised to the, and this is the first time you've seen this, it's the only time you'll see this, it's in the payment formula, a negative exponent, which you have to be careful with your calculator. Some of you might have to hit the negative after you type the numbers. Then n times t, the n was 12 because monthly, time we're paying 30 years. And then we close the bracket. Now, so I don't have to rewrite this all over again, I'm just gonna write that this exponent right here, 12 times 30 is 360, so that's negative 360. And I can type this in a scientific or graphing calculator all at once. So 200,000 parentheses or times 0.0475 divided by 12, close the parentheses. Then this division is this big fraction bar. Now there are no bracket buttons in calculators generally, they're used for matrices. If I found the bracket button on my calculator, which is right here, it would spit out an error after I hit enter, so I'm not going to. You just gotta use a parentheses count. 1 minus, parentheses. Mr. Beckner, where are you getting all this? I'm literally just reading this. Just use your eyes, one piece at a time. Type it, one piece at a time. Type it, one piece at a time. Type it. All right, parentheses, then 1 plus. Then the 0.0475 divided by 12. We close the parentheses. Divided by 12, close the parentheses, then an exponent. Now for me, I do the negative, then the 360. Depending on your calculator, 360, not 365, you may have to type the negative second. It just depends. Remember, we always pre-multiply exponents. And look at this, 1043 and then 29 cents. That, I believe, is what the mortgagecalculator.org website said. And then to get the interest, well, that's our payment, 1043.29. We're going to pay that 60 times. 60 times, excuse me, 360 times. The exponent is the number of payments in T. So if you took that 1043, and I think this is why there's the discrepancy up here of the number I had versus of, what was it, 900 originally? I can't remember. If you do 1043 again, these are usually rounded to the nearest whole dollar, times 360. You get 375,480. And if you subtract, let me do the actual payment, 1043.29 times 360. And then if you subtract the $200,000 you borrowed, there's your interest of $175,580. Now, the reason there is a $2 difference here is because of round-off error. We've talked about how a small round-off here done over and over and over and over and over and over and over can lead to bigger changes, and that's why it's off by just a couple of bucks. Now, you're not actually going to pay the bank a fraction of a penny, so this is much more accurate. But I mean, you're $2 off. If you're just trying to understand these numbers for yourself, is that $2 error going to mean anything? Absolutely not. The important side of this is it's about $175,000 in interest. So again, all I did was I found the total paid by taking the payment times the number of payments. That was day one material. And then I subtracted the total paid minus how much we borrowed. There it is. For the annuity calculation, let's do the 30-year one. So we're going to take the value of annuity compounded in times. We're going to take this formula because we're doing monthly deposits. So the amount we'll have later, A, will be the payment of $462, bracket parentheses 1 plus. We're earning 7% monthly, and then that's NT, so 12 times 30, then a minus 1 here. Again, you see a lot of the similar features, they're just kind of rearranged, and then the bottom is 0.07 over 12. Again, R in, I'm just putting the circle in the circle, the square in a square. The 12 times the 30, once again, is 360, but this is a positive, not a negative, so make sure that you understand that. Pull out a calculator. 462, bracket parentheses, 1 plus 0.07 divided by 12, close the parentheses, raise it to the 360th power, because we're going to make that deposit 360 times, then a minus 1, that minus 1 is not part of the exponent, close the bracket, which I have a parentheses there, divided by parentheses, 0.07 divided by 12. And let's see if we get that 543,000. What's going on here? Oh, no, I remember. This is the one that's different. I said earlier that the Annuity Calculator website is going to be a little off. And it actually feels significantly off because it's $20,000 difference here. And I'm going to explain why this is. This formula here is oversimplified. Believe it or not, this formula is oversimplified. The website is a little more accurate because it accounts for, I don't even want to tell you what it accounts for, but it accounts for something else. So these numbers will not match the website versus actually using the formula. But again, it tells you, oh, $500,000 and some change. That's a lot of money. That tells me I should be doing this thing because I'm going to have $500,000 later. So in terms of if you had calculations to do in your My Math Lab homework from Chapter 9, which again, I've already told you you're not responsible for, then this is the formula you'd have to use. You couldn't use the website because the website is inaccurate in comparison to our oversimplified formula. But in terms of the grand scheme of things, about $550,000, this was about $550,000. It's good enough for what we call government work. So $563,000, which was close. It's not super accurate, but it's ballpark. So again, do you take the 15 or the 30-year mortgage? That's your decision, not me telling you what to do, but you've been educated on what you can do with your spare change if you can afford the 15-year and instead take the 30-year. Also, if all this still just absolutely terrifies you and you don't want to have money sitting around a bank account for a spare roof here and there, then you just rent for the rest of your life. Renting is not the end of the world. It's an option. You have less financial burdens overall. You just have to pay for the rest of your life. Also, if you're only going to live somewhere for 3 or 5 years, renting is usually the best way to go as well, because when you buy a home, you have to pay, fees. The real estate agents take some money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Also, due to what we call amortization, you don't get a lot of your money invested back in the home until like 15, 20 years in. You're paying each month, you're paying a lot more towards interest than principal. And I'm going to show the website again real quick to explain that. And let's do this on a monthly schedule. Well, let's go back to the 30-year one. Monthly, oh, that's the annuity calculator. That's what was throwing me off. All right, here we go, here we go. So I'm going to click show amortization tables, which is just a monthly breakdown of where your money is going. Let's take the chart off. Let's do monthly amortization. So when you go buy a home, they'll give you this chart. It's 360 rows of how much of your money goes towards principal, how much of your money goes towards interest. So that's this table right here. So our first month on the 30-year loan, about $800 goes to the bank, and about $250 essentially goes to us. Notice I used the word essentially. So that's $250 that you've now paid off in your house. So if there were no fees for selling your home and you sold your house for exactly $200,000 on January 5th before you paid your next payment, that means that you would now have $251.63. That would be how much you have for sitting in your home for a month. That's not a lot. You paid, where is it? $1043 that month, but you're only banking $251.63. So that's not a whole lot. And again, that's not $250 you just have access in terms of liquid. It's $250 that you would have if you sold your house for exactly what you bought it for, which is pretty rare that happens. But what happens is each month you pay a little less in interest, 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 a little less in interest. And then because you're paying a little less in interest, that means you're paying a little more to yourself, a little more to yourself, a little more to yourself. And the interest keeps going down, the principal keeps going up. So 10 years in 2030, now it's only $639 we're paying the bank and $404 that we're, quote, paying ourselves, going under a mattress that you buried 10 feet under your yard because it's not that easy to get to. You have to sell your home to get it back, essentially. But then 10 years later, in 2040, look at this. Now we're only paying $400 to the bank and we're paying $600 to ourselves. So at some point it flipped. And for this particular scenario, it flipped about here. About 16 years in is about where we start paying a little more to ourselves and a little less to the bank. And to the right column shows you how much you have left on the loan. So let's go back to the start. So after that first month payment, you had $199,748 left of the loan. So again, your 200 some dollars and change, 251, there it is, would be the money under your mattress in your backyard, 6 feet, 10 feet under the ground. 10 years in 2030, December of 2030, we've paid about $39,000 of this home down. A third of the life of the loan has gone by, but we've only paid $39,000. You would think maybe you paid $66,000 because that's a third of the loan, but no, you've only paid $39,000. 20 years in, now you've paid about, where are we? Here we are. You've paid about half your home. It takes 20 years for you to pay half your home down. But the last 10 years, because you're paying much more to principal than the bank and interest, it drops really, 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 really quickly, especially the last 3 or 4 or 5 years. I mean, look at this. The last payment, you're only paying the bank $8 and you're paying yourself, in theory, $1,000. That's because these interest payments on a month-to-month basis don't go to those big crazy calculations. It's just balance times periodic rate. And if your balance is $1,039.18, 1039.18. So there's your balance times your periodic rate. We were getting a 0.0475, which is 4.75% divided by 12 to make it a periodic rate. And there's our $4.11 that the bank gets. And then the rest of that monthly payment goes towards yourself. And then you own your home. You don't make that payment anymore. You just pay insurance and taxes. Please don't let the government take your home because you're not paying your taxes. Please don't inherit a home and let the city take it because you're not paying your taxes. Good grief, that just upsets me. People complain about, oh man, my taxes are $300 a month. I can't afford it. Yeah, but you're not paying a mortgage of $1,400 a month. Come on. And again, I know some of us have extenuating circumstances like crazy medical expenses, but do everything you can to pay those taxes. When you own your own home, insure it. Please don't stop paying your insurance because you own it. You don't want your house to burn down and then you got nothing. And I know someone who knows someone who that happened to. They inherited a home, so they said, I'm not going to insure it, and that thing burned down. And I cannot imagine how many tears were shed over that. All right, maybe you don't trust this interest up here. Well, why is the first one so high? So again, our balance was $200,000 before we paid anything down, times that 0.0475 divided by 12. Again, that's our periodic rate, 4.75% divided by monthly. There's our $791.67. And then the rest would go to principal. And then you can subtract the balance and the principal to get your new balance. These are all things that we've done before. We're just applying it to a mortgage now. All right, so that's mortgages. We've got about 20 minutes. All right. Remember, you have to decide whether you like the risk or not. All investment values are speculative and for educational purposes only. No lawsuits are going to happen. Renting is an option. You don't have to invest. You don't have to own a home. You can do whatever you like. I just want to educate you to understand these numbers. Because a lot of people go, oh, well, I want to get a home, but I need to go talk to a loan officer to find out what my monthly payment will be. No, you don't. Go to mortgagecalculator.org. Go to a website that says typical mortgage, just Google current mortgage rates. If you have awesome credit, then you'll be able to get those rates. If you've got okay credit, maybe add 1% to that. And then just run some numbers yourself. If you want to compare a 15-year to a 30-year loan, you can do that. A lot of times if you go to buy a car, those people are skeezy and they'll just give you the payment numbers. Well, you can take the 3-year loan and it's this payment. You can take the 5-year loan and it's this payment. They won't even tell you the interest rates sometimes. I have a friend who this just happened to. They wanted to buy like a $40,000 car and they were asking what the rates were. He wouldn't say, the lender or the car person, whatever, would not tell them the rate. and he texted me about it and I said, walk away. If they're not going to tell you the rate, that's not good. And he walked away. All right, credit cards, the other type of debt, and this is the bad debt. Don't you ever again pay another penny in credit card interest if you have any kind of control over it. This is how people don't retire. Instead of putting that $462 a month to an investment, they're putting $462 to a credit card payment for some swanky couch and whatever, all sorts of other fun things, but fun things, they don't last. So credit cards, mortgages right now, 3 to 4% for really good credit. 5% has been more the historical average for the past decade, just decade. Past that, it was 6-7%. 3 decades ago, it was 10 to 20%. It was awful. So credit cards, 15 to 20% annual percent rate generally. Yes, there are credit cards with introductory lower rates or no rate at all for like a year. If you have awful credit, it can go higher. There is no cap. I'm sorry, there is a cap now. I always forget that because that was just put in like 3 or 4 years ago. But there is a cap to what they can charge. And this is what happens. The minimum payment trap can lead to items costing twice as much or more. So you buy a $1,000 computer and it ends up costing you $2,200. So you buy a $50 video game, it ends up costing you $100 because you're just making minimum payments on a 18 or 20 or 22% credit card. The average American has $10,000 of credit card debt. Awful, awful, awful. Now, this is not some speculative financial advice. Don't have credit card debt. It's the worst thing you can do for yourself. I understand sometimes we're forced into a corner and we don't have a job, so we rack it up on the credit card. Medical bills come up, so we rack it on the credit card. That's fine. If you have the control, don't rack up credit card debt. And I say this as someone who uses a credit card every single day, every single month, every single year. I put 90% of my expenses on a credit card, but I pay it off every month. Because if you pay it off in full, you never actually get charged the interest. They give you a 30-day safety window before the interest actually starts getting charged. And that's from when they send you the bill. All right, so let's do a scenario. $2,000 balance at 18% APR with a payment of $50 per month. And this is what you would probably see from the credit card company. Now, depending on your company, they may ask for a little more because they have different thresholds for values and stuff. So this credit card company says, you're going to pay us $50 every month. And I'm telling you it's going to take 62 months to pay off, and you'll end up paying $1,077 in interest, which is more than 50% of what you borrowed in 5 years. Mortgages don't even get that high in 15 years. If you don't believe me, here's the 15-year mortgage problem again. You only paid $71,000 in interest, which is about 35% interest on the principal. So your home on a 15-year loan costs you 35%. Oh, Mr. Beckner, you said don't take that. Take 30-year loan. Again, I didn't actually say don't take it, so don't put words in my mouth. I made suggestions of reasons to do certain things. Oh, well, the 30-year loan, that was closer to like 80%. But again, that's 30 years. That's a long, long time. This credit card, we're only looking at for 5 years, and we're already paying that much in interest proportionally. Imagine if you have 20 grand in credit card debt. Now that's $10,000 that you're paying in interest. That's insane. That's money you might as well just set fire to. All right, so maybe you're not trusting these numbers. Where did these numbers come from, Mr. Beckner? Oh, well, there's a website for that. If you go to your helpful websites, back to the top, credit card payoff calculator. Also, if you just Google credit card calculator, payoff calculator, it's like the first or second or third thing to pop up. More ads I'm not used to seeing. Credit card balance. Oh, I haven't used that on this computer before, $2,000. Credit card interest rate, 18%. You're probably typing these numbers, of course. Payment per month or desired months to pay off. So these last two, it's an either or scenario. I said we're making a $50 monthly payment. Hit calculate, and look at this. It takes 62 months to pay off. We have $1,077 in interest. So again, that's more than 50% that you're paying in interest. Mr. Beckner, this says 35%. This is on the total paid. Out of the $3,077 you pay that credit card company back, 2/3 of that goes to your principal, which you actually borrowed, and then they get 1/3 of what you paid for free. So relative to what you borrowed, interest was 50% of that. Relative to what you pay in total, interest is 35% of that. It's a case of it's relative to what you're comparing it to. All right, so what do I do? Well, I would suggest you pay this off quicker. Instead of making $50 monthly payments, if you can afford it, make $100 monthly payments or $200 monthly payments or whatever. Let's see what happens if we double our payment. This is 5 years and 2 months right now. If I double my payment, you might think, oh, it's going to be 31 months. Nope, it's 24. You know why? Because interest compounds. And when you're paying this off quicker, you're reverse compounding, which shortens the time span instead of lengthening it. So that's 7 months of paying you save yourself. And look at this, you only pay $400 in interest instead of almost $1,100 in interest. So you're saving yourself $700 approximately by doubling your payment on this small loan. Look at this, if you had a $20,000 credit card balance, which some people do, that means you would have been having to make $500 monthly payments originally to get it paid down in 62. Now, if you're making $1,000 payments, your total interest goes from 11 grand to 4 grand. You're saving yourself $7,000. The first thing you need to do is pay off your credit cards. No one is going to tell you otherwise. Credit cards need to go to zero balance. Again, you can use them every month, but pay them off every month. oh, Mr. Beckner, if I get this credit card, they're offering me 2 or 3 or 4% points for getting this Amazon card, which is just money back in my account. That's free money. Yeah, but if you're paying 18% interest or 24% interest, that free money is completely negated. That 1% you're getting back is negated by the 23% you're paying. That makes complete sense, I hope. But if you're not paying the credit card company any money in interest, then that 1 or 2 or 3% now is free money. And that's what you do. There are credit cards out there that will offer you, like, if you spend $1,000 the first 3 months, we'll give you $200 or $300 for free. Those are great credit cards to get if you are good with credit cards. Not everyone is good with credit cards. Some people can't handle them. And to those people, I say maybe or maybe you shouldn't have a credit card at all. The problem is you need some type of credit to establish a credit score to be able to buy a home later. Some people buy cars to establish their credit score. Some people get credit cards to establish their credit score. Some people get their parents or someone else to co-sign on a loan or a credit card. There are lots of different variables there. But you really do have to establish a credit score at some point to borrow money for a home, because that's how the bank trusts you. No credit is the worst thing you could have. So absolutely nothing in that world means they have nothing to base trust off of. The world is currently changing. The what we call the FICO score, or FICO score, is becoming modified in some ways, that they can start looking at your savings accounts and making sure you've never dipped below $0 balance or checking accounts and things like that. I am not exactly in tune with that side of things and how relative it is, but if it's not a thing yet, it is going to be more of a thing in 10 years at least. That's what I do know. So maybe that can affect you in a positive way, maybe not. Credit cards have pros. They have a lot of cons. All right, so tips for good credit card use. To establish a good credit score, which helps you get lower APR loans or a loan at all. Pay off your cards every month and on time, and you'll never pay a cent in interest. Many cards offer points and rewards, which I was just talking about, which are only valuable if you are not paying their terrible interest. Many cards offer sign-on bonuses. If it's one that's a lot more extreme, like, oh, spend $4,000 in 3 months and we'll give you $500. $500 for free? Yes, sign me up and let me go buy $4,000 in electronics. No. Only do this if you already plan to spend that much. Maybe you're going to be rebuilding your bathroom and you're going to buy $2,000, $3,000 worth of materials, and then you just have another $1,000 in average expenses. Okay, then you can go get that $4,000 expense needed to get $500 for free credit card. Don't just go spending needlessly and recklessly to hit some magic number. Do it because you have to. Before we move on, where is it? It's on the other page. That's where it is. How's your credit score calculated? There are tons and tons and tons of myths about credit cards. Myth number one, that you need to keep a balance on your credit card every month, which means you need to pay the bank a little bit of interest every month. Wrong, false. You know who started that myth? The credit card companies, so that you'll pay more money to them. The best thing you can do for yourself is drive that balance down to zero with every single month's payment, because of something known as a utilization ratio, also known as the, on this chart, current loan and credit card debt. It makes up 30% of your credit score. The lower that number, the better. Zero is the perfect number. Having a balance is worse than zero, which means this little donut would be a little smaller and your credit score would be a little smaller. Second myth, if you're not using a credit card, you need to close it because having too many credit cards is bad. Completely false. Unless it has annual fees. Don't ever pay annual fees on credit cards. Asterisks. There are exceptions to the rule if you really want to get into the nitty gritty, if the bonuses are worth it, but I'm not going to get into that great of detail because we're short on time. It is actually better for your credit score to have more credit, to have more credit cards. Now, again, if you're the person, which is like 8 out of 10 Americans who just can't handle credit cards, I'm not talking to that person right now, but if you have one credit card and it has $1,000 credit available, that's fine, but if you have 3 credit cards and each of them are $1,000, now you have $3,000 in credit. That's actually better because it increases the denominator of your utilization ratio. Utilization ratio means you take how much money you have on the credit cards and you divide it by how much money they'll let you go up to. So utilization ratio, I'm just abbreviating it for the interest of time, utilization ratio, or your rate of credit. That's how much on the cards to available credit. So let's say Bob has $500 on the cards and $1,000 in credit. His utilization ratio is 500 over 1,000. Oh, look, a ratio, which is 0.5, which is 50%. That means 50% of his credit is being utilized currently, and that's not good. That's going to drop Bob's credit score. Jane has $500 on her cards, and she's got $5,000 in credit. So she's got 5 credit cards maybe, or just a total of $5,000 in credit, because it'll be like one card will give you 1,000, another card will give you 3,000, whatever. So Jane's utilization ratio is 500 over 5,000, which is 0.1, which is 10%. That is better for your credit score. The lower that number, the better. 0 is perfect. Now, if you're charging money on your card every month and paying it every month, which means you're never paying interest, you'll still have a utilization ratio because it gets pinged on a certain day of the month, which depends on your card. But that number should be pretty low because you're paying it off every month. It's not like you're building up $10,000 worth of credit card debt and paying that off, except in really, really rare circumstances like you're a millionaire. Okay, buy whatever you want at that point, I guess. All right, so payment history. Oh man, 35% is your payment history. You miss one payment, it can drop your score up to 100 points depending on where you are. Now, some of you might be saying, well, Mr. Beckner, I missed a payment and it only dropped my score 30 points. It's probably because you have a low credit score and you've missed payments before. I'm talking about that first payment you miss. Do not ever miss a payment on your credit cards. Now, you might say, well, Mr. Beckner, I missed a payment one time and my score didn't change at all. I watch it. And if you've got apps for your credit cards, like if it's on Chase or BB&T or Bank of America or whatever, usually these apps now offer you just a quick free credit score check that you don't have to pay for. Don't pay anyone for a credit score check, please. You'll say, all right, I missed a payment and my credit score wasn't affected at all. Well, that's because the credit companies don't always ping it immediately. If you pay it in like 4 or 5 days, you might miss that pinging is what they call it, and then it doesn't affect you. Some credit card companies will do it the second you miss the payment though. So don't miss payments. That's 35% of your credit score. Don't close out old cards just because you're not using them, because that's the length of your credit history, that's 15%. Don't close out cards because 30% of your credit score is how much utilization you have. So the more cards you have, the more credit you have available. 10% is in the types of credit, so credit cards, car loans, home loans. This is a really small contributing factor. So if you don't have a car loan, that's not that big a deal. If you don't have a home loan, that's not that big a deal. 10% is new credit. Every time you get a new credit card, it's going to drop your credit score maybe 10 to 20 points, which is not really that significant. It just means don't apply for 10 credit cards in a year. 1 or 2 a year is fine. Maybe 1 a year to be more conservative. And again, none of this is advice. I'm just saying what you can do potentially to have things happen. The biggest contributing factor to your credit score is missing payments. The second one is how much credit you have available. The third one is how long you've had them open. And if you have a 10-year-old credit card and you close it, woo, that credit score is going to drop significantly, not 100 points, but maybe like 40 or 50 points because you just killed your oldest card. And they want to see those old cards because old cards mean they can trust you. If you have a card that you haven't used for 2 or 3 years and they send you something in the mail saying, hey, if we don't see something, if you don't use this in the next month, we're going to close it, go put a $5 charge on it, pay for it immediately, pay it off immediately, and that'll keep your 10-year-old card. Don't let them take your old cards. All right. Anything else I want to point out from this section? think that'll be good. So here's those 3 websites. And again, all of these you can quickly find with a Google search. The mortgage calculator, if you don't like my website, just Google mortgage calculator. It's got that built-in one with a lot less bells and whistles. But the bells and whistles will help you see the amortization, graphs, and things like that. And it can also account for realistic things like your PMI, your insurance, and your, what did I just forget? Taxes. Your annuity calculator, I said there's 2 different types of annuity calculators, so maybe really specifically use mine there. This credit card payoff calculator is awesome. Let's go back to the credit card payoff. That's what we'll finish this with. So back to the $2,000 card. We have $2,000 worth of debt on a credit card, 18% interest. Now let's say instead of putting in a payment per month, let's say we go, all right, I know $50 a month was going to take me 62 months to pay it off, 5 years, 2 months. What if I say I want to have this card paid off in 3 years? I can blank out this one and type 36 in the desired months to pay off, which would be 3 years. And it will spit out the monthly payment I need. So I need to pay $72 a month to pay this down in 3 years. This is a super simple but amazing website. If you have 3 or 4 or 5 credit cards with all sorts of debt on them, some people will say pay the biggest balance off first. Some people will say pay the biggest APR off first. Both are excellent schools of thoughts. If you want to pay the least amount of interest, pay the one with the highest rate off first, then the next highest rate, then the next highest rate. Don't worry about the balances. If you want to have what we call the cascading effect, so that your payment amount drops significantly all of a sudden, then you pay off the biggest balance first, then the second biggest balance, and the third biggest balance. You'll pay a little more interest that way, but you'll probably feel a little better as you go because, all right, I pay off, let's say 2 years in, I pay off my biggest credit card, and that was $300 a month. Now that's $300 you just freed up. Again, you're probably paying a little more in interest that way, but it's not going to be that significant, and it'll make you feel better. That's what most people think, at least. It's a mental effect. But if you don't need that mental effect, you pay off the highest rate card because every month that's going to be the thing causing the most damage. So I got a card with $2,000 and I got a card with $200. The $2,000 card has an 18% APR. The $200 card has a 25% APR. Me, I'm going to pay down that 25% APR first, get rid of that $200 credit card, so that then I can attack the lower interest one. And when you free up that money, you can take that free money and attack the credit cards. Should you pay off your credit cards first, or should you focus on investing first, or should you be doing both at the same time? Different schools of thoughts, and I don't want to tell you what to do. Me personally, I'm of the school of thought that I'd pay off the credit cards first. If you think you're going to have credit card debt your whole life, then pay off your credit cards and invest at the same time. Don't save the credit cards for last. No one should ever do that. You're either paying off the credit cards first, or you're paying your credit cards while investing. I think the first scenario is better, but if you're just the type of person who's going to live with credit card debt your whole life, then you need to be investing while putting up with your credit card debt. But again, I highly suggest that you never pay those terrible banks their credit card interest ever again if you can control it. And on that bombshell, we'll call it a day. That's 9.5. Next time we'll have, as quick as we can, in 75 minutes, we'll go over 9.1, 2, and 3, just kind of picking and choosing some fine topics. And that'll be our last class. So don't forget that we have some assignments. We have the wrong thing. We have the Excel, that last Excel file, a couple of my math lab homeworks that are pretty easy in my opinion. I think 8.3 is mostly multiple choice. A video quiz due today, and then a final exam next week. Please email me if you have any questions. Take care. Have a good day. We'll see you on Thursday.